Rams 21, Saints 14. Taysom Hill done for the year. This is off the bench. T-Bob, Jacob Hester, and I am the face of the franchise, an absolute superstar in every single way. All right, let's go ahead and react. Do what we can do in the wake of the disappointing finish in Saints versus Rams.
Saints fall 21-14 to the Rams yesterday, and it's a disappointing game for multiple reasons. It was a late afternoon game, so you had already known that the Atlanta Falcons had dropped. Therefore, to Jake's Bolts.
The Falcons are horrible, all right? And we said this before the season. The Falcons are trash. Been trash, are trash. Everything we said before still holds true. Overpaid Kirk Cousins. Why draft Michael Penix? Why draft a 28-year-old rookie after you sign a vet and overpay a veteran quarterback? What's going on here? Jahmyr Gibbs greater than sign Bijan Robinson. Drake London, who plus cares? Boom. Now, what really was about to be bad is about halfway through the fourth quarter when it looked like the Panthers were going to beat the Bucs. If the Panthers beat the Bucs and the Falcons lose to the Chargers and the Saints beat the Rams, all of a sudden it is very real that the NFC South is up for grabs in a triple threat match, even kind of a tornado tag four-man match, because the Panthers would kind of have an outside chance as well. So it's one of those things where, you know, ifs and nuts and whatever, but yeah, it feels bad that the Saints couldn't capitalize on that one.
I know, Jake, you were your two loves, Kirk Cousins and the Bolts, doing battle. Only one could win. I'm sure you're actually happy it was the Bolts, though.
Yeah, I'm glad that Kirk O'Chain threw his 4 passes.
By the way, Kirk Cousins has thrown 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in his last 2 games, I believe.
But,
thank you, Kirk.
So they know. So going into the game, the Saints know what's on the line. You win that game, all of a sudden you're 1 game behind in the NFC South. And it started so well offensively, Jake. You were so efficient early on, moving the ball, a great run and pass mix, Kamara making plays, Taysom Hill making plays, not having to rely on Derek Carr. Like, you can't rely on Derek Carr, right? Everything has to be working around him, and then you hope that he supplements and he fills in around the edges. Without a doubt, the biggest crux point of the game just feels like the illegal man downfield. Wonga just barely getting a little too out over his toes, trying to fire off. Tries to scramble back immediately to the line of scrimmage, but it takes a touchdown off the board. You then miss the field goal to follow up, and what should have been a 10-0 game is 3-0, and that was enough to open the door for a Hall of Fame quarterback in Matt Stafford. And
yeah, I mean, you can't, and we make a habit of this. You can't make games closer than they need to be. The Saints are great at keeping games close for their opponent. Those are the games where, you know, instead of 6-0, it was 14-0 or 13 or 10-0. Then all of a sudden it's a different game. But 6-0, 3-0, it allows the Rams to keep doing what they want to do. It doesn't, you don't take the game. That's the thing. I think, like, if I had to really define the issue with the Saints last couple of years, is that they don't take the game. There's no proactiveness to the game. It is always like reactionary, or it seems like we're always chasing, or it seems like we're always, right there, but so far away. It never seems like, okay, the game is there for the taking, go get it, go win it, go do it. And the only times that they do that, the only times the Saints do go take the game is whenever everything's perfect. And we're scoring 40 points. Like, the games that are, it seems like the games we do not ever win are the, 17-6, 20-10, 23-10, those kind of games. Like, if we're not absolutely rolling, if it's not 35-7 or 35-14 or 42-7 or whatever, if it seems like it's just kind of a, okay, back and forth games for the taking, go get it, boom, all of a sudden we win by 10, that's the most rare thing possible. It's either we're fighting, scratching, clawing for literally every half yard in a 6-0, 3-0, 9-6 slug festival, or it's, wow, we can do no wrong. We just scored 47 points in the first quarter. Like, there's no There's no in between for the Saints. There's no easy wins for the Saints. There's no just like cruise control.
Nakua just making 7,000 catches.
5. We only had 5. Weird game. Box score insane. Nakua 5 catches. Cup 3. Cup like 15 yards. Nakua like 50 yards. Kyron Williams 15 carries. Matt Stafford like 180 yards. It did not go how we thought it would go. Flip side, you've got Alvin Kamara 120 yards and 5 yards to carry. 23 carries.
And Sean McVay, it just opened the door enough for them to come back and find a way to win that game 21-14.
Yeah, and defensively, you did enough.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Matthew Stafford. I mean, but you kept him in check for the most part. And Puka Nacua did have 5 catches, and they all kind of came at the same time. But I still think you did a really nice job. 5 for 56 on him.
Yeah.
You look at Cooper Kupp, only 3 for 17.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense did their job. You know, obviously you had the Robinson, the long play there, and you're not expecting that to come from him. He's been good this year, but you're expecting that maybe to come from Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. Even Kyron Williams, I know he got over 100, but, I mean, you've been poor in your rush defense all season long, and you did well enough. He only got 104.
I mean, I think he averaged 7 yards to carry. Like, I don't think that's doing well enough, but I do agree, like, it was not the 30-carry, 170-yard game. You know, like, it was a good game. Kyron Williams, no doubt about it, had a good game. Over 100 yards, 7 yards carry, but it's just like it's more than, oh, well, did the defense do the job? Or it's just the whole thing. Like, it's in totality of the game. It just wasn't good enough. And it's almost like we didn't want to win. I know we did want to win, but it's almost like we played like we didn't want to win. And we made it so much harder than it had to be. And maybe that's just it right now with McCoy out and with, you're missing all your wide receivers. And, so maybe it's just one of those things where it's like, look, it is going to be hard. And maybe it is hard. Like, maybe it is difficult for the combination of Kevin Austin and Cedric Wilson and MVS and Foster and Jawan to get open. Like, it seems like the Saints are a player away from being a player away. Like, it seems like we are take your pick, like a top tight end or a top receiver. Like, it seems like we're that player away from this really working where, Alvin's running the ball well. Boom, he's got 100-something yards, and on those 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s, we can feed a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle or a Brock Bowers. We can feed a Devontae Adams or a Justin, like whoever, whatever receiver you want. But feels like in crunch time, or not even crunch time, but it feels like in 3rd and 6, like, where are you going? You're going to Dante Pettis. 2-point conversion, you're going to Dante Pettis. 3rd and 6, you're going to Kevin Austin. And that's asking a lot. Like, it's asking a lot for Kevin Austin to get some separation and make a contested catch on a 3rd and 6. It's asking a lot for Cedric Wilson to 3rd and 9. Hey, we're coming to you on the back shoulder. Make it happen. Like, those things seem very difficult, and you do have to kind of. And I reminded myself during this game, and I also reminded myself after the game with the Bengals, or before the game with the Bengals game. But like, when you look at the Saints, or at least when I look at the Saints, and I'm looking around, and it's Shane Lemieux, and it's Cedric Wilson, and it's MVS, and it's Foster Moreau, and it's Jawan Johnson, and it's who the hell ever. And then you go look at, like, the Bengals, and it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and, Trey Hendrickson, and it's all these players. And even you look at the Rams. Like, if the Rams would have lost this game, the Saints would have won. They'd be in the same record. The Rams are Matt Stafford and Kyron Williams and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and, Jared Verse. And the point is, like, it's difficult to win. And it's hard enough to win when you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and, all these players. It's hard enough to win when you have Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Hard enough. It's even harder when you have Cedric Wilson, MVS, at times, Bub Means, Mason Tipton, Foster Moreau, Jawan Johnson. So you kind of got to step back and say, like, maybe it's just, maybe at a certain point, like, the roster is what the roster is. The talent level is what the talent level is. I mean, imagine if you're a Bengals fan. Like, I would much rather be a Saints fan than a Bengals fan, because if you're a Bengals fan right now, you're looking around like, wait a minute, we have the generational quarterback. We have the franchise quarterback. We have the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. We have 2 good running backs. We have, a fantastic defensive end. We have what we thought was the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. We thought, like, all of this stuff is happening. Why in the world are we 4-8? Why are we, what's going on here? And Joe Burrow is playing at an MVP level. He's having maybe the best year of his career, and they're 4-8 or 4-9 or whatever they are now. So, it's just a crazy thing. But for the Saints, it's a little bit of an easier Sudoku puzzle. It's an easier Sudoku puzzle to say, like, well, the roster is hurt, number one. We're missing our players, missing our starting center, arguably the second most important player on the team, missing our top 2 wide receivers. We're already relatively thin. Like, we weren't a great, like, a top-notch S-tier roster anyways. So with the Saints, it's a little bit easier to figure out. I couldn't imagine being those other franchises that it doesn't make any sense for why they're that bad.
On the ground, so the defense gave you every opportunity to go win the game. Just offensively, you couldn't. You're mentioning, take a touchdown off the board. That's always going to be just a backbreaker. Like, we were talking LSU, Florida. You take that touchdown with the Kyron Lacey offensive pass interference off the board. You settle for a field goal. What's that game look like if you keep that touchdown on the board? And so when you take points off like that, it's hard to come back from. And in the second half, the Rams made the adjustments on offense and defense that you did not make, because it was 6-0, but you dominated and had full control of the first half.
Yeah.
It had a little bit of an A&M feel to it, and then Taysom goes down. It's like, man, he was your leading receiver. There were things that he does, not only when he's getting the ball, when he's not getting the ball, that you lose when he's not in there. And Derek Carr was too much. He was too much check down Charlie. I mean, 5 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
Like, when you throw the ball 37 times and you only have 184 yards to show for it, like that's
with a pretty deep. How far was the MVS touchdown? That was all.
Like 27 yards, something like that, somewhere in that ballpark.
Also kind
20, 28,
okay,
29.
It's not crazy, but it is kind of funny. I was kind of joking, like, man, we haven't even seen our MVS yet, and then it actually happened. I was like, well, I'll be damned, bro. Yeah, he actually has been pretty good. But look, you nailed it. Taysom going down. Are you kidding me? We've seen it already this year.
Yeah.
Maybe Eric McCoy's the only other biggest Achilles heel. The way that Clint Kubiak uses him really has fulfilled all of the use chick, very kind of reductive parallels that we made before the season started. And when you lose Taysom on this team, it just nothing works as well. And it looks like he's going to be out for the year. The fears that season-ending knee injury, it did not look great.
I think it's going to be
not as serious. But unfortunately, this did kind of feel like the final stand, maybe for the great hope of the season and making something out of it. I think there's going to be a very interesting and nuanced conversation about this offense. I wonder what happens to Kubiak. I really believe in him. I don't know if there's ways.
I like him. I like Kubiak. I like the idea of this offense. If you were to tell me before the season, if you were to tell me the personnel, I would say this is not going to work. Like, this is not how this offense can work. You have to have some kind of personnel, because you see what they want to do. They want to run the football. They want to matriculate down the field. They want to convert third downs. That is very difficult to do with either a fully makeshift offensive line, which we've had at times, or a fully makeshift receiver crew, which is what we have right now. You look at all the other teams that run this offense well, or a version of this offense well, they have their guys. Imagine. Like, think about the Miami Dolphins. A-Chain, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Think about some of these offenses and some of the pieces they have. Even the Niners. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. I understand he got hurt. But Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. You look at, even in Minnesota, like Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones. And then you look at the Saints, and it's MVS, Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton, Bub Means, Jordan Mims, Alvin Kamara, like Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. It's just not good enough for what this offense was to do. Now, will Kubiak get the opportunity to get a better roster or get some pieces in there or get a receiver here or get a tight end there or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, it depends. I think Rizzy, the magic number I've been saying the whole time is 2. If he loses 2 or less games in his tenure, I think he's got a good shot of being the head coach. But if he loses more than 2, I don't think he's even in the conversation. And if you bring in a head coach, you're probably accepting that he's going to bring in his own staff. And it is what it is. I like Kubiak for sure. I like the system. I like what we've seen from it. And I do think he deserves to run it with a better offense, and some of it isn't even like necessarily roster issues. It's just injury issues. There's not a lot of rosters out there. I mean, I know I keep referencing these teams, but how bad would the Dolphins look if Waddle and Hill were out, right? All of a sudden, it's like, well, damn, this offense sucks. The offense is fun and they're flying all over the place when you have Tyreek Hill and Waddle, but when your 2 receivers are out, what's it look like then? Take Jamar Chase off the Bengals, Chase and Higgins off the Bengals. It's a totally different team. I know Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave aren't up to that level, but they still are number 1 and are number 2. So it's just one of those things where maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, where the roster's not good enough it's not S tier, whatever, in general. But then you also throw in all these injuries and you got to kind of put your hands up.
Kind of the same thing with Rizzy. I mean, again, this is not a bad game from this Saints team. They made a few too many mistakes to win, but it didn't, I don't know, it didn't feel like a disaster. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with Rizzy either. This probably holds him back from being able to get, the job as a bridge guy or anything else like that. But
I don't think losing one game. I mean, losing one game, I don't think, losing one game isn't going to disqualify him from potentially being the head coach. So if you are a Rizzy stan and you want Rizzy to be the head coach moving forward, I think you still got some hope there, but it's a much taller task because now you have to go on the road to Green Bay in prime time. When that game, you have to beat Washington at home. Not to mention, you have to go on the road and beat the teams you're supposed to beat the Giants, and then of course you have Tampa Bay on the road at the end of the year, the Raiders as well. So Rizzy's road is simple, but win out. That's it. Win out, and Rizzy probably has a decent argument at the end of the year. I mean, hell, you win out, you might win the division. So if you're back in Rizzy, that's what you got to do.
It's disappointing because they played well, and they definitely played well enough to win. Just a couple too many mistakes, and then again some bad injury luck, which has kind of been the themes of the entire year up to this point.
Yeah, and you feel bad, obviously for interim coach, and he's got momentum going. It's like you kind of have to be perfect if you want an opportunity to go get this job.
Gotta be close.
And so, like,
real
now,
close to perfect.
You look up, and this was the portion of the schedule where, and you still got one more of these type of games that we kind of laid out, though. You got the Giants coming up. That game's going to be on the road, but then it kind of gets back into you got the Commanders, and then you got to go on the road to Lambeau Field. You do get the Raiders, but then you got to play the Buccaneers on the road. So there's still some difficult games where you're going to be an underdog in, and we keep having the conversation.
I would assume we're going to be dogs in every game except the Raiders and the Giants.
Conversation because the division's so bad, you kind of get excited, and if you'd have won this game, you're sitting there.
No, you've been perfect.
You're 5-7.
You're right there.
But now, like just with one game, with what you have coming up, you feel like your chances are probably gone.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably.
I agree.
They're not mathematically gone, but they're probably gone.
So very disappointing. Somebody says maybe don't. T-Pow, maybe don't base your offense on an injury-prone 34-year-old. Okay, fair. But when it works, it's awesome. When it's working, it's awesome. So we'll continue that. Now you just got to kind of take this season as it comes.
Yeah,
you're gonna lose. Do you want them to win?
I mean, you go win. You go win. Like I tweeted out about. I saw a tweet where the Washington Commanders have now traded or cut every first-round pick they drafted over it was like a 4-year stretch. It might have even been longer, but yeah, it's just more fuel for the tanking is ridiculous kind of thing. So you hope the team wins. especially if you're rooting for Kubiak, if you're rooting for Rizzy, if you like a little bit of what you're seeing as far as like the scheme and all of that. But yeah, you take it a week at a time, because if Atlanta or Tampa keep scuffling and we win, then who knows? Maybe it's a win and you're in, final game of the season on the road at Tampa. I don't know.
It's complicated.
Look, I love Taysom Hill. I think he is like everything that you would want in a football player. And there's, portions of his game that really honestly are like nobody else. I mean, he is a unicorn in that aspect, but anytime that he's your leading receiver with 37 yards, that's not good. That's not what you would.
But that's what I'm saying, where you can't, like, we don't know exactly what the reason is. Like, okay, we obviously need to be able to push the ball downfield. We obviously need to be able to get more from our receivers. So is it a question of, can we? We can, but we're not willing. Like, there's a lot that goes into this. So we don't really know. Like, I wouldn't blame Kubiak if Kubiak said, yeah, I'm not going to target Cedric Wilson 10 times. I'm not going to I'm not going to waste plays on that. Just like we always talk about Jamal Williams and Jordan Mims, where it's like, don't waste plays on that. So if he's like, I'm not wasting plays on, whatever, Dante Pettis out routes, it's like, all right. But then when you do that, then all of a sudden it's like, well, how the hell are you going to win? It's like, well, I'm just going to win by getting 3-4 yards of carry and then throwing 3-4 yards to Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson, and Foster Moreau. And when that's the game plan, that makes for some really boring games. That makes for some really pulling teeth type offensive drives, which is exactly what we got against the Rams. So I don't know if it's just like that's how Kubiak thinks that we're going to win, is kill the game, compress the game, drag it out, go for that 3, 4, 5 yards of play, or if that's just how it worked out. I don't know, but it's yeah, I do agree. Like, you're not going to win a lot of games. You're certainly not going to win the top tier games. You're certainly not going to be a legitimate threat when Taysom Hill getting 40 yards is the bulk of your aerial assault.
Not when you're throwing the ball 37 times.
No.
You don't want your emergency quarterback / tight end, fullback, running back to be your leading receiver. And so his injury, it already has shown this year, like you mentioned, T, it's already shown like there's too much reliance on Taysom Hill.
I mean, the same with the Niners. Like, if the 49ers said, all right, the way we're going to win this game is we're going to run the football, and then we're going to try and get use check available in these like little 5-yard hitch routes. And if that's not there, then I guess we also try and get George Kittle in, the same kind of intermediate routes. If that's the answer, like, all of a sudden you're looking at San Francisco like, man, this is kind of a whatever offense.
Like, Taysom's awesome, and Taysom can be a real weapon, but when you have to count on him so much, the offensive philosophy is not where it needs to be.
Well, that's where
Well, it's also the worst thing Taysom does. What's the worst thing he does? Is I would say like a tried and true tight end. The worst thing for Taysom is like, yeah, man, go run this 6-yard in route. Like, that's the last thing you want him doing. You want him carrying the football, running the ball, the quarterback run hybrid thing, read options, power, quarterback powers. Like, that's what you want Taysom doing. You don't want Taysom to be doing his best Hunter Henry impression.
Get back to Loomis in the front office.
Yeah.
You have given Kubiak like Doritos.
Spare parts.
You get like Doritos, like overprocessed cheese, bologna, and been like.
Well, I mean, like to Loomis's defense, this wasn't the plan. Like, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed being out there, Eric McCoy being out there, things change. You want Taysom to be your fourth option. You want it to be Olave's your first option, Kamara's your second option, Rashid's your third option, then Taysom might be your fourth option, then Foster's your fifth. Like, that looks very different. But when a majority of your options are out, then it changes things. So to Loomis's credit, like, you can't really say like, hey, you haven't really given Kubiak anything, because you look at the pieces and they're hurt.
Like, hey, make something impressive. And I actually think he has. Like, if you ate what he cooked, you're like, this tastes better than it should.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's not going to be enough in the end. Last thing, completely random. Braden Fisk made one of the most athletic plays I'll ever see. That will not count. that fumble recovery where he hits the knee power slide into immediately popping up on his feet and then finding a way to cut back and finish in the end zone, like, that dude's a freaking beast.
He is a beast.
You see everybody hating on Miles Frazier, right? When Miles basically told him, like, okay, that dude's a dog. No, okay, that dude is a dog.
Yeah.
Certified. Okay. Sometimes you got to give.
How's that guy end up at Western Michigan?
Sometimes you got to give credit where credit's due. And Braden Fisk is a dog. Wow. Just
there you go.
Amazing.
Boom. Tough one, ladies and gentlemen. Tough one. Tough one. Tough one. Tough one. The season isn't mathematically over yet. Do you believe? Can we win out? Who the hell even knows? Have you ordered your MVS jersey? What size? And did you cut off the sleeves? All right. Get on down in the comments below. I will see you in the next video.